If you want to maintain a legacy farm, you need to be sustainable. And to be sustainable, you need to have sustainable soils.
Soil health is critical because this is where we grow our food for our cows. To have a healthy cow, we need to put in a healthy crop for our cows to eat.
Soil health is all about soil function. And so to maintain that function of that soil is essential.
We know there's sand, silt, and clay in soil, but that makes up only 45%. Roots have to breathe, they need air. Roots need water, they need that space in the soil. So half of soil should be pore spaces.
An unhealthy soil is a non-living soil. It's going to be heavy clay. It works great for making bowls and pottery, but it doesn't do very much for growing a crop.
There are a number of factors that influence the permeability of soils. The number one factor is how dense and brick-like is your soil, or is your soil aerated, has lots of pore space. Permeability is the rate at which water will move through that soil based on the pore size.
One thing that happens is that if you have abrupt changes in textural classes anywhere in the soil profile, that actually will impede water movement through a soil profile, the drainage capacity of the soil. So if you go from a layer that has coarser texture, let's say by adding sand to it, and then all of a sudden you go to another layer that has a finer texture, that abrupt change is actually going to affect the infiltration capacity, the drainage capacity of that soil.
Sand bedding started in 1996 for us, so we've been on it for 21 years of putting sand onto our cropland. The organic content where we've seen is starting to fall because of the fact that we became strictly a milk cow dairy. To be able to have water holding capacities, to be able to build organic matter. When we put the sand out there, and it's very inorganic, so we're not building organic matter by putting that sand on there.
So sand is just basically silicon oxide, fairly inert material. So it doesn't really provide any nutritional value to the soil in that it doesn't provide any minerals. The other thing too is that it has very low to no charge. So it has a very low nutrient holding capacity.
When our sand, silt, and clay particles are no longer swimming in a sea of organic matter, all you have then is a brick.
So as you're putting that sand bedding in the field over time, that could lead to changes in the texture of the soil. So you're basically changing the proportion of sand, silt, and clay particles in the soil. That determines a lot of the chemical properties of the soil, physical properties of the soil, and in turn then also affects the biology of the soil. When we start making those changes in the texture of the soil, that could have some impacts long term. How long for that would take, it depends on the amount of sand that is put in the soil, but it could lead to some other effects such as changing the infiltration capacity of the soil, the water holding capacity, and the drainage capacity of the soil.
Water infiltration is everything if you believe at all that we have a runoff problem in this country. I do believe our producers know there's a soil issue, and they're making strides to try to reduce their physical impact.
If you add large amounts of sand to the soil where you're actually changing the textural class of their soil, you will be affecting the aggregation of that soil and the porosity of that soil. Not only the total porosity, but also the pore size distribution. And those changes can affect the infiltration capacity. And then as you look at the soil again, they could create an abrupt change on texture from one layer, surface layer, to the bottom layers that actually will impede infiltration, and redistribution in the profile will slow it down.
The reason to get away from sand would just strictly be agronomic reasons. It's getting to the point where it's kind of difficult for that to fit in. We're looking at other ways that we can still have a very comfortable cow and not sacrifice anything on that end, and being able to satisfy our agronomic needs that we have here in the field.